everybody. Welcome to our weekly virtual wine tasting where we will be sampling a new wine every time and talking about the wine and enjoying our time. All right. Today, we are going to be tasting a bottle of 29. And so if you have this at home, please go grab it now. And if you have it chilled, great. If you don't, that's totally fine. Grab it now, come taste with me, and let's get started. All right, everybody. Well, I'm Anne. I'm the winemaker here at Soldier Creek Winery, and I'm very excited to share with you our 29. You may notice that it's in a half-size bottle, and we will absolutely get to that. But first, here it goes into my glass. All right, 29. So what a funny name. Why is it called 29? 29 is actually a wine made from the Frontenac Gris grape, which if you were here a couple weeks ago with us, we tasted the Frontenac Gris. This is the Frontenac Gris. We have this in a rosé form. The 29 is Frontenac Gris in a new special winemaking style. And this is called a late harvest style wine. So what 29 means, we let the grapes hang on the vine for a really long time, way longer than normal for ripeness for Frontenac Gris. Usually we're picking Frontenac Gris end of September, early, maybe mid-September, anywhere between September 15th and September 25th. But for 29, we let the grapes hang on the vine as long as possible. We can only really do this in the perfect weather years where we don't have a lot of disease or we don't have a lot of bird damage or anything like that. So in those perfect weather years, we can actually get the Frontenac Gris to stay on the vine for an extra 6 weeks or so. So at the end of October or maybe the first week of November, we'll get up very early and we will go out and bundle up in our warm clothes and our gloves and hats and mittens. It's oftentimes very cold before 5 a.m., before the sun comes up. And oftentimes at this point, the grapes are just slightly frosted, chilled. And if you look at them on the vine, they look like raisins. So they're late harvested. They've hung on the vine for an extra 6 weeks. That means that all of the water has removed itself from the grape and concentrated the flavors and the sugars and all of the yumminess of the grape. And that's the fruit that we work with in the Frontenac Gris. Okay, so the first reason why it's called 29 is because the very first year we did this, we harvested on October 29th, and it was 29 degrees out. And as I mentioned, that the sugar content gets concentrated as the grape itself gets desiccated a little bit. And so the percentage of sugar that very first year in the resulting juice was 29%, which is really pretty high. Usually we harvest Frontenac Gris around 22%, so to have 29% sugar is very sweet. So that is why we call it 29. What happens when we have this really ripened raisiny fruit in our juice? It has completely different aromas than regular Frontenac Gris that's like this. And we'll talk about those when we're doing our tasting. But we also do not get a lot of juice. We have to hand harvest this. All the rest of our grapes, you may know that we have them machine harvested, but all of our 29 grapes need to be hand harvested. All of the rest of the leaves in the vineyard have fallen off all of the vines. So all you see out there are, dead twigs or starting to become dormant twigs, and all of their leaves have fallen off. So just the twigs and raisin clusters. And so it's really fun to go out in the dark. We all have headlamps on and we pick a cluster of raisins and put it in the bin. For our 6 rows of Frontenac Gris, we would typically be able to harvest 2 tons. And when we're doing 29, it has lost so much water that we only harvest maybe 2/3 of a ton. So it's a huge reduction in quantity, but the result is this fantastic, succulent, I'm trying to think of the words, it's just so delicious. Okay, so if you haven't started already, please start with me. Okay, so okay, first couple of things. The juice itself is super sweet. When we begin fermentation, it's super sweet. It's very thick. It's like syrup. It's like having peach syrup at a diner. You know, back in 30 or 40 years ago, when we used to have really luscious fruit syrups at a diner. So it's very syrupy, and we begin fermentation, and it's pretty slow, just because there's not a lot of water activity there, and there's a lot of other things going on in the matrix that make it a little tough for the yeast to grab hold and begin their fermentation. But once the fermentation is going, it does pretty much like normal, and then we are able to um, uh, track how much sugar is still in the wine as it's fermenting. And once we have reached a desired amount, we will actually stop fermentation by quickly moving the tank to a very chilled region. And we're talking like 25 degrees Fahrenheit here, basically crashing out as much of the yeast as we can. And then we will quick filter after a day of crashing the yeast out. We'll filter it to make sure that we're limiting the fermentation as much as possible. So what's resulting is a wine that has not completed fermentation all the way through, which means that there are leftover sugars when we already started with a high amount. So the 29% sugar, or sometimes it can vary. Some years we've had it even up to 34% sugar or so. And after we arrest fermentation, we end up with about 10% alcohol and a very yummy, sweet, late harvest dessert wine. So, tasting. Okay, when this is fermenting, it smells to me like banana Foster, like very caramelized, delicious cooking sugar. The caramel is so yummy, and that's just natural from the grape and from the yeast. Um, After fermentation is complete, which is where we are right now, oh, it's so yummy. I think of like ultra ripe pineapple. Think of a pineapple that's been sitting on your counter for a really long time, and it's so ripe, and it's permeating your entire kitchen. And where you can't even get the smell out of your kitchen. It's so aromatically strong in your kitchen. It's a very ripe pineapple aroma. You also might get some dried peaches or apricots. It reminds me of a Dole fruit cup. So if you're back in a lunch to go, and you get a Dole fruit cup, that's what this reminds me of. So honey, lychee, um, the overripe pineapple, raisin, of course, pear. Okay, and then when we taste it, mm, this is this is so good. It's a good thing it's in a half size bottle, because I think it would be really easy just to enjoy the entire bottle, which, with a half size bottle, it's okay to do that. Or whatever, no judgments here. Uh, so we have this delicious dessert peachy. It's like canned peaches, delicious canned peach juice. It's like the juice from the canned peaches. Um, any comments back there from the peanut gallery about this wine? Pear also, honey. Yep, very good. Okay. And any comments out there in the interwebs, if you have comments about this wine, if you're tasting it with me and you would like to comment on it or ask a question, please, I look forward to seeing your questions and your comments, and I will read them all and respond. So please let me know what questions you have. Okay, we've already talked about how this is a Frontenac Gris grape, and we have it in many forms in the winery. So we have it as a regular still wine, in a regular size bottle with regular alcohol content, regular sweetness. And then we have our sweet style dessert wine. Okay, and then let's also talk about, let's see. Oh, ice wine. How does this differ from ice wine? Okay, that's a good question. It's not exactly an ice wine style. It's on the verge of being. It's halfway to how they would make an ice wine. So an ice wine, they would leave the grapes on the vine a long time again, but usually they would leave them until the grape itself has gone through a couple of freeze thaw cycles. So there you need definitely freezing temperatures overnight, maybe a slightly warmer temperature during the day. And when it freezes the grape and then actually thaws the grape, it breaks the cells and allows some of the water to be released from the cells that way. And so, and then when they would harvest those grapes, they would be actually frozen ice cubes. And so when the juice gets pressed out of the grape, then what's left is just the sugar syrup part, and the ice cube that's inside this grape would theoretically be would not fall through the sieve and be discarded. So then you're left with a really concentrated aroma and sweetness level there too. This is not quite that far. This is just late harvest, so we've just allowed the grapes to become raisins, but we're not actually letting the grapes freeze on the vine. So it's not exactly an ice wine, but it's definitely a late harvest. So let's see what else. Um, have you if you haven't tasted this, this is from 2021. This was a perfect year for late harvest wines. In our vineyards here, it was a not quite wholly droughted year, but enough that we didn't have a lot of disease issues at all. So we were able to leave the grapes on the vine for a really long time without them molding or rotting or anything on the vine, which is great. If you haven't tried this, please come out and try it. And it's very possible that you haven't, because we've only just released this vintage next in the last 2 months or so. So please come on out and try it. And if you want a perfect time to come try it during our Vine Monotog this weekend. So Saturday, come on out to Vine Monotog. Saturday from 2 to 5 p.m. We are going to be doing our annual sampling with food pairing. It's $12 a person, and you get to try 6 of our new wine vintages and new varieties. And we have we have River Hops Brewery coming out, and we also have Wildcat Distillery coming out offering samples. So come on out and taste it. And because it's Vine Bondertog, we will be hiking through the vines. So if that piques your interest, we have that opportunity for you too. Vine Bondertog this Saturday, 2 to 5 p.m. And please check our website for any other events that we have come on out. And while you're here, grab a sample of our 29, and we'll see you then.